And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Sabotage, which is a spy versus spy style game. It's a 1 versus 1 or a 2 versus 2 game where one person is an evil villain in their secret lair and the other team or person is spies trying to go in and take them out. This is a game in which you are both playing on the same board, but you have something in between you. So you're trying to move and you're giving some communication as to how you're moving to the other team and trying to get behind them and sneak and do your devilish or heroic deeds. Here's a little bit about how it plays. So the game is quite big, takes up a lot of table space. You're going to actually open the box and put it between the two teams. So you can see here the other side. I'm showing the villain side, but there's a spy side. And you're going to build a board here which has a 4x4 grid on it, A through P, 4 different color rooms, blue, orange, green, and red. And you're going to put this stuff, there's walls, there are doomsday devices, and there are generators. And you're going to put them in the same spot. Now, there's a setup. This is the setup the book shows you. But you can also take turns back and forth, basically building together the area in which you're fighting. Each player is also going to get some tiles. So these are the villain tiles. You get 3 moves, a motion detector, a generator, and a stun gun. And you're also going to pick a character. So you're going to pick one of the characters, which is you're going to take the figure for that character, and that character will come with tiles. And as the game goes by, so for example here we have Nadesh, and she has a flashlight she can get, and then she'll get one of these two, camouflage or whirlpool, or land shark and tentacles. And these are special tiles for that character. The game gives you cards, so you can look at, for example, if I'm the villains, I can look at the good guys. So these are the special cards for the characters, and then these are the cards that the spies have in general. They have move and scan, parachute, hack, and earpiece. So players are going to be attempting to win the game by accomplishing their mission. There's cubes here at the top of the box, and I am trying to get rid of the cubes for my side. The villains are trying to attack the spies and hit them and do damage to them, while these spies are trying to destroy the doomsday devices that are on the board. At the beginning of each round, one of the villains will roll their dice, and then they tell everyone what they've rolled. So here I rolled a 1, 2, a 3, and a 3. So everyone else will rotate their 4 dice to match those. Players are then going to pick actions and place them in the action slots underneath their board, and you're going to assign a die to that action. So for example, if I move, I need to use a 1 through 4 die, and I'll put it on one of the 4 things, showing what direction I'm going to move on the board. If I want to use a generator, that says add a blue cube to a generator in my room, and then once I turn 2 blues, the generator is on. Now, players can only use 2 of their dice. Now, once the villains turn on completely generators, they're going to get their other 2 dice. The spies will have other ways to get theirs on. Also, like I mentioned, you can get these other cards up here, and you'll do that by moving cubes to these spots. The spies will do it by scanning. And so let's take a look real quick here at the spy board, because it looks a little bit different than the villain board. The spies will scan, and then they'll be able to move cubes here, which will unlock their dice, or they'll also be able to go up here and get cards. While the villains will do it simply by placing dice here to unlock these cubes, to put them on. Once you fill up a spot with a cube, you'll get this action. Now, when the player takes an action, there's something they need to say. So here they say, I'm using the flashlight because it says name. If they are doing the generator, you say nothing. You don't have to say anything. If you move, you don't have to say anything. While the spies will have various things that they're going to say based on their tiles. So, for example, if they parachute, they say, I'm parachuting. The very first turn of each game, the spies are going to parachute onto the board. Every time they're shot, they come off the board and they'll drop back on. When they move or scan, they'll say scan. But what they'll often do is they're going to ask. For example, they'll say, I'm scanning the red area, and the villains have to tell them if they're in one of those spots, or I'm scanning the row A A, B, C, D, or the column A, E, I, M. But you have to be in that row, so the villains are listening to these scans, and they will be using tokens to try to figure out exactly where the spies are. Why? Because they want to use a weapon to attack. I'm standing here, and I say I'm attacking a spot next to with a 5 and 6, and you remove the spy from the map. And when you remove a spy from the map, the spies will get more cubes. Yellow cubes are good for modifying a die, changing it. And green dice give the spies a slide, which is like a free move. But if you do that 3 times, then the villains win. The spies are trying to mess with the doomsday devices, moving cubes from their side of the board to your side of the board. And when they do that, they're going to get a cube, but they have to do that 7 times to win the game. There's a few more rules than that, but it's going to last a certain number of turns. You're just going to keep setting up. Every time, like I said, a spy gets taken off, they're going to parachute on the next turn. You're going back and forth, just trying to outthink each other. Players can talk back and forth between themselves or whisper. You're not allowed to lie to your opponents when it comes to what you're doing. You have to say whatever it is. So if I use camouflage, I have to use camouflage. And each character has very different things. So for example, Nadish here can get the land shark, which will attack 3 spaces in front of her. But she needs a sum of 13. It also destroys walls. So it can destroy walls on the board that people might be using to get through. So there's all sorts of things, but because you have access to what your opponents know about you, you'll be able to look at these and you're just trying to outguess the other team. Eventually, one of the teams is going to win the game. This is a huge box. Now, part of that is because it is the shield between the players. The rule book is big. I'm not a big fan of these giant rule books. They're the size of the box, but all right, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. I do like that they have this little welcome to step by step. That's a great little rule book in here. The boards, I like the fact that the boards have just the letters, or you can have the names. Either side works. Now, as this game is overproduced, but it has these boards. Great quality. The fact that they're recessed helps out a lot. Inside the box, you have 2 plastic trays. Now, stuff does slide around a little more than I would prefer. These aren't as good as game trays, and you can see here this is after the game has been moved, not a lot, but the stuff does slide around a bit inside the thing. That being said, though, the miniatures, I love these miniatures. They're great. I love the fact that the cubes slide in to these spots, and then I like the fact that the box itself is big. So this game could have been a smaller game for sure. It is big, it is grandiose, and I do like that aspect of it. And I do like that everything fits in the box because Tim Fowers has normally made games in which you have to kind of jigsaw it in. Yeah, it's a pretty neat game. There's a lot of cool things going on in it, and the production value is really top notch. I have a few concerns with Sabotage. The first is that it's big. I mean, I'm glad these big grandiose productions exist and stuff, but it is a big game to bring out on the table. There's a lot of pieces, and in reality, I don't know if the game's as big as the box. That's a minor thing. Don't get me wrong, I still love miniatures and moving stuff around, but wow, there's a lot of pieces for this kind of game that it is. That's very, very minor. More importantly, the game, I think, has a fairly there's a learning curve involved. And so the game is going to revolve around you looking at what your opponent's doing. This is going to be one of those games in which you sit there and go, oh, that's how that works. Oh, that's how that works. And after the first game, you're like, all right, let's try it again. This time, I know how to catch you. And I think when you first play the game, it's a lot easier to play the villains than it is the spies. Because the villains, it's much easier for the villains to unlock their things. The spy, to get their dice back, they move up on this swagger track, it's called. But every time they get shot, or stuff, the swagger track moves back. So it's a little harder for them to get the extra dice, and having the extra dice certainly counts. It's very stressful for both sides as they're trying to figure out where your opponents are, and you use logic and deduction to figure that out. But I think it's going to take a couple plays to get into it. And again, that's a very minor negative. That's how games like this work. My biggest negative to the game is that I feel like the 1 versus 1 game is okay. It's best as 2 versus 2, which means it's essentially a 4-player game. Not 3-player 1 versus 2, I feel like that's a little uneven. And 1 versus 1, it's okay for 2-player, but it just feels like it's a 2 versus 2 style game. And it plays so well in that regard. I just wanted to kind of clarify that. Other people's opinions might vary, but for myself, the idea of working with a teammate, working together, there's cards that let you, especially with the spies, move your opponent's piece. And again, that communication back and forth is a lot of the fun of the game. I've heard a lot of people compare this to Captain Sonar. I don't really see the comparisons that much. In Captain Sonar, you're running one submarine around shooting at the other person's. It's in real time. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I really enjoy Captain Sonar. I also enjoy Sabotage. Not as much as Captain Sonar, but then again, I don't know that I would compare them. This is a little bit more thinking and deduction, and yes, Captain Sonar is that too, but it has that real-time aspect to it. It's also one sub, and you're working as a team. Here you have multiple people moving around trying to do things. The similarities are there, but I feel like they're very different. This one, I really enjoyed just the aspect of listening to the opponents, trying to outthink them, doing the bluff, double bluff, and what this game reminds me of a lot is of a Scotland Yard style game, but in this one, both players are hidden, which is fun. If you've ever played Scotland Yard, for me at least, it was fun being Mr. X. The detectives are fine and all, but it's fun sneaking around and trying to figure out where the other person is. And in this game, that's both players, and I enjoy that. And then there's the tension, you know, the spies. You don't want to get attacked. And like, I don't want them to know where I am. And meanwhile, the villain, you're feeling stressed because I got to protect the doomsday machines. There's 3 of them. Also, I want to use the generators, and also I want to hunt these spies down and get them. But if they keep scanning us, they're going to get stronger and stronger. Some really cool aspects. I love the delicious tension that the game provides. And like I said, as a 2 versus 2 player game, it is just a kind of a sublime experience. It's really entertaining and fun. And I'm kind of surprised this one's not getting more buzz because it is that entertaining. I think the high price tag is part of that. This game looks more intimidating than it is. And there are a ton of pieces in the game. I'm also not convinced the rules do the best job at explaining how to play the game. The methodology, this is one of those games that, again, like I said, it requires almost a first game and then everyone goes, oh, and then they understand it for game 2. There's a lot of games like that, so that's a very minor thing. Overall, I enjoy it. I thought it was a lot of fun. This is definitely a game in my wheelhouse where you're hiding from your opponents and there's a secret movement on 2 sides. There are so few of those games out there, which is probably why this is compared to Captain Sonar, because there are so few out there, and this is a really good, solid one. And a quick aside, fantastic art, fun characters that are very much, several of them based on, you know, different famous spies or villains, and I'm definitely cool with that. Overall, cool little game, cool big game, Sabotage. Dice Tower Judgment, approved.